We are live now, ma'am. You can start.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Meenakshi Vadera. On behalf of Indian Speech and Hearing Association, I would like to welcome you all to the commencement of our 15-day long event galore, that is Speech and Hearing Awareness Annuals 2020. These events are being conducted pan India to commemorate two occasions: International Day of Persons with Disabilities, which is on 3rd December, and Isha's Founder Day, that is on 15th December. The primary purpose of this program is to spread awareness and educate public regarding various speech, language, hearing and balance disorders so that they know when to contact an audiologist, speech language pathologist. So before we begin any occasion or before to start a good occasion, the best way is to begin by invoking the blessings of Almighty. So I call upon Ms. Swati S., our ASLP student, for invocation song. Swati?
Yes, ma'am. वरदे वीणा वादिनी वरदे वरदे वीणा वादिनी वरदे प्रिय स्वतंत्र रव अमृत मंत्र नव प्रिय स्वतंत्र रव अमृत मंत्र नव भारत में भर दे भारत में भर दे वरदे वीणा वादिनी वरदे वीणा वादिनी वरदे नवगति नवलय ताल चंदनव नवगति नवलय ताल चंदनव नवलकण्ठ नवजलद मन्द्ररव नवलकण्ठ नवजलद मन्द्ररव नवनभ के नव विहग वृद को नवनभ के नव विहग वृद को नव पर नव स्वर दे नव पर नव स्वर दे वरदे वीणा वादिनी वरदे वरदे वीणा वादिनी वीणा वादिनी वीणा वादिनी वरदे
Mute.
Meenakshi ma'am, you have to unmute.
This whole program has, thank you, Swati. This whole program has been possible because of the innovative ideas of our Chair Public Relation and Licensing Committee, Mr. Jwara Naika, teamwork of entire EC members of Isha, and at the forefront, guiding us, our very supportive and visionary leader, our President of Isha, Dr. Krishna Y. I would like to invite Dr. Krishna to address us all.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Meenakshi, and good evening, everyone. Good evening to all the participants who have joined this event today on Zoom and YouTube platform. As Meenakshi has said introductory remarks, that we are starting an awareness program to increase awareness on the profession of audiology and speech language pathology, who are, just to keep it simple, who is an audiologist and who is speech language pathologist, what the services they can offer, and who are all the beneficiaries from our service. And To commemorate our association's formation in December 15th, we've been celebrating this awareness events. Various activities are conducted at branches, chapters, institutions offering through our, these courses, speech and hearing programs, are offering various awareness programs pan India. This time we have come in a different way to reach out to all the public professionals who uh, whom we work with, and we are trying to bring in the range of awareness panel sessions, which is available throughout 15 days in different topics. Uh, Mainly, the purpose of this event, as Kofi Annan says, knowledge is power, information is liberating, education is premise of progress in every society and in every family. Thinking on these lines, once each member of the family is aware of various conditions, that can make them a, a disabled person or differently abled person or a unique person or having difficulties in their day-to-day communications. Once they have a knowledge of whom to approach, when to approach, and right time to approach, then the better management can happen and you can have a good quality of life. With the advances in the technology, a lot of things have developed in the science, in the healthcare professionals, and audiologists and speech language pathologists have been an important team member in the healthcare team, offering the services for the individuals with various speech, language, hearing, voice, swallowing disorders. Throughout these sessions, we would like to bring to you, and I'm sure you all will enjoy with with the galore of activities and the information to take from each of the sessions. And we look forward for your active participation. If you have missed, you can still see us in the YouTube channels, and we would like active participation from you. Without taking much time, we let's start the programs and wish you all the best, and we look forward to your active participation. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. I would also, before we begin, I would also like to thank all our industry partners for coming forward and helping us for this, to organize this event. We have a hand raised by our very dear Dr. Rajshekhar. So I'm just, sir. So now you can unmute your mic.
No,
Yes, sir.
no. I just wanted to wish the Isha Alvis 2020,
Thank you, sir.
grand success, because I know of say preparations that have gone through, and you've been working very diligently to get all the top resource persons on ground. I just wanted to wish you all well, and I said that we have begun on a very very auspicious note.
Thank you very much, sir, for all your blessings and guidance.
And I'm sure that we all will definitely better panelists. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And it is all a teamwork, sir. Without a team, nobody can achieve anything in here. So and as I said, that it's all a big thanks to our complete entire team who's behind the scenes organizing and helping us achieve what we are wanting to achieve. So without taking any further time, I would like to jump to today's sessions. Today we bring to you two sessions. Can I share my screen?
Yes, please.
So today, as I was saying, that we have two events lined up for you. One is the panel discussion. The second one is a talk by Ms. Neeti. So the panel would be moderated. The panel is on, does your, basically on the topic, or the focus is on stuttering, and the topic being smoothening the bumpy road to fluent speech. And it will be moderated by Mrs. Bharti Prabhu. Mrs. Bharti Prabhu, ma'am, is a speech language pathologist by profession. By training, she is a speech language pathologist, and is a visiting faculty of Samvad Institute of Speech and Hearing, Bangalore. But by profession, she is a freelance writer and has written many articles on communication disorders, on communication issues for various newspapers. And she's also involved in with public education and various activities and campaigns. And she is our go-to person. She is an active member of PR and Liaising Committee of Isha. And for our any content needs, she's a go-to person. She always helps us out with our various informations on this. So over to you, Bharti ma'am.
Thank you, Meenakshi, for those kind words. I think we can begin the session. Good evening, everybody, to the audience and to all the panelists who have been so cooperative. Thank you, Isha, for giving me this opportunity. So I think we can, I think I need to share my screen.
Yes, ma'am. You can. I have to stop the share.
Yeah. Somebody else's screen has come on my computer. Just 1 second.
We can't see us. We can.
Yeah.
Anil, can you help her?
Yeah, no one is sharing the screen. You can.
Now, is that okay now? Am I sharing my screen?
No,
ma'am.
no.
Yes, please, you can share the screen now.
Yeah. 1 second. It says, Isha, join a meeting, it says.
Yes.
Should I click on that? I'm sorry for the glitch.
No, that's okay. You just say share screen.
I have come out of Zoom, it looks like.
Ma'am, it goes behind your presentation. If you minimize that, it will.
Yeah. Now let me just see if I can. Yes.
Perfect, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. And here on the screen, you see Bruce Willis, the heartthrob of Hollywood. And you see Demosthenes, the ancient Greek orator and statesman. You see President-elect Joe Biden, and you see Marilyn Monroe, and the famous singer Elvis Presley, and our own Hrithik Roshan. So what do they all have in common? I think the audience will say they're all famous and rich.
Sorry, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt. Can you put it on a share screen, the
Slideshow.
slideshow?
Sorry. Okay, so all these famous personalities, if you say what they have in common is richness, along with that, what they have in common is also stuttering. So today, to discuss about this complex yet intriguing disorder is a very eminent panel, which will tell us how to smoothen the bumpy road to fluent speech. All you need to know about stuttering. Before we begin the actual discussions from the panel, let us hear how speech of a person with stuttering sounds.
Hi, I'm Pavitra.
Hi, I'm Karan.
Hi, I'm Arian.
Hi, I'm Vikram.
Can everybody hear that?
I don't remember when I started stammering, but I know that
Yes, we
it
can
was probably like in 12th grade or like first year of college I started stammering.
Probably 6th to 7th standard.
I've been with me and they'll answer it before I do. So I just have to calm myself before I answer anything. And that's frustrating because I won't be the first person to answer then.
when we introduce ourselves in a class. So that was like a dreadful moment.
It was some cultural day or something like that. I'm not sure.
Words that I want to use. So there are certain words I know I can't use. So I avoid using those words.
I say the word the before I stammer. So I feel like it cancels out the impending.
Hi, I'm Pavitra.
Like the auditorium was filled with it. But I ended up winning the second place for that debate. So
yes, this is a sample speech of people who stutter. And to smooth, we have we start off with Mrs. Maya Sangi. Mrs. Maya Sangi, very popular clinician and teacher. She has guided several research projects. She has mentored several students. And it's my immense pleasure to welcome you, ma'am, to this panel discussion. And she was the Indian representative at the International Stuttering Association between 2007 and 17. Welcome, Maya, ma'am. And then we have Dr. Vaivita. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Geeta, and she has woken up very early to be with us on this panel discussion today, with almost a 12-hour gap between us and her time. Dr. Geeta's interests in stuttering is early identification, intervention, and genetic factors. And we have these young panelists, gold medalist Dr. Pallavi Kelkar, whose interest is in treatment of people with stuttering. She believes that one size fits all does not work for people with stuttering, and believes that individual treatment is the need of the hour. I look forward to listening to your views along with other people's views. Pallavi, welcome to this session.
Thank you.
And then we have Aishwarya Varghese. Aishwarya Liz Varghese teaches at KMC Mangalore. She is presently pursuing her PhD. Aishwarya has a lot of experience treating adults and children with stuttering. Welcome, Aishwarya.
Thank you.
Okay. So we begin by asking the question, the most obvious question: what causes stuttering? Over to you, Mrs. Sangi.
Thank you, Bharti. There are multiple reasons, explanations for this. You know, the result, I mean, the smooth and easy flow of speech is possible only when a number of factors are, you know, compliant for the individual. So there are a number of internal factors in the individual and a number of external factors, that is in the environment of the individual. And here I would like to highlight that production of easy and smooth speech is the result of coordination of three important systems of speech. That is the breathing. So the muscles of breathing mechanism, breathing in and breathing out, that's very important for producing good speech. So we have to modify our breathing mechanism, particularly for speech. Then we have the muscles of the voice box, and we have the muscles of the oral, that is the mouth, the tongue, lips, teeth, etc. And all these muscles, more than 100 of them, they have to coordinate precisely with a proper timing. And of course, the control of this coordination is in the brain. And therefore, knowing that there are so many factors and how complex this is, it is very important for us to remember that the speech language pathologist is the one who will be able to understand which factors are operating in a given individual and accordingly manage it. And what are these factors will become clearer as our discussion progresses today.
So the next question is to you, Geeta ma'am. So if intrinsic factors that she mentioned about muscle coordination and other things, those are the things parents will want to know whether they have any control on these factors. What do you think is the cause for stuttering, along with what Mrs. Maya Sangi mentioned?
Yeah, the cause of stuttering has been seen a shift of reference from physiological to psychological to physiological, and recently a combination of both. So we have basically some genetic factors. Some genes have been identified, but we still don't know the mechanism through which these genes contribute to stuttering onset and development. So we have three different types of um, causative factors. We describe it as a predisposing factor, precipitating factor, and maintaining or perpetuating factors. So genetic factors is sort of predisposing factors. So like if there are, if individuals have some genes responsible for stuttering, it can lead to some problem. Like basically the onset of stuttering happens during early childhood. So during the development of speech and language skills in the child. So the language areas in the brain responsible for speaking, understanding language. So all these things are intricately coordinated, and when we select and sequence the sounds that is required for production of individual words and words in a sentence, it requires a lot of coordination. So the children, when they are developing speech and language skills, they have a lot of like physiological and neurophysiological factors which may contribute to the breakdown in fluency in them.
So to give an analogy, children when they're beginning to learn to walk fall many times, and gradually they improve their coordination. Speaking is also a similar thing with even greater coordination than function like walking. So it is along with the physiological factors, what are the other factors in the environment that could cause stuttering? Aishwarya.
Yeah, so we were looking at the genetic factors and physiological factors as mentioned by the other panelists. So the environmental factors are also very important for a child who is developing his speech and language skills. So for example, like Bharti ma'am just said that, children as they learn to walk, they fall down many times, and then by falling down and then getting a grip of it, they learn to walk. Similarly, when they are developing speech and language skills, they have a lot of interruptions, or we call it as disfluencies, when they are beginning to talk because their language is still maturing. So when these things happen, there is a normal period of time for which you don't have the parents don't have to worry, because they are learning to speak and they are coming out of that problem very soon. But if they do not come out, and if parents are very anxious, they try to correct the child repeatedly, and parental factors, the anxiety of the parents, etc., poses as a risk factor, because these internally influences the child, and the child feels that something somewhere is wrong, and that is a major environmental factor that a child can have during the developmental years, which can lead to stuttering.
Okay, thank you, Aishwarya. Pallavi, what about adults who stutter? What do you think, even though it's a developmental disorder, that is, it is generally developed when somebody is still very young, there are many adults who stutter. How would you explain what the cause for their stuttering is?
In adults, I would say it's a vicious cycle, which I will come to. But first, I would like to really put together what Sanghi ma'am and Geeta ma'am mentioned. That is, firstly, intrinsic factors, and what Aishwarya said, which is extrinsic factors. But these are mainly triggers. These are triggers to a basic tendency that the child has, right? So even whenever I see an adult who stutters, I tell them that this is not a disease. It's a tendency. Just like somebody might have a tendency to be obese, tendency towards getting spectacles, tendency to have asthma. This is a tendency that you have, and this can get triggered by these various factors. Now, once this gets triggered, what happens is the first thing that the person would want to do is to make sure that the person in front of him doesn't know that he stutters. And from there starts this whole negative cycle, because he starts avoiding situations. Now, after, for instance, if there is a person or an adolescent who stutters, he knows that he stutters. So suppose there's a marriage function he wants to attend. He'll say, no, I don't want to go for it because I don't want to face people. I don't want to talk. And after the situation is over, after he has successfully avoided it, then comes the guilt, then comes the frustration, then comes the stress. And that stress itself is another trigger, like we said, because stress is a trigger also for stuttering. So this cycle sets in, and that's how stuttering progressively increases from childhood to adulthood.
Okay, so stuttering, the cause for stuttering is both within the person and outside of the person. It could be that you have a predisposition for stuttering, and it can get triggered off by your own behavior, reactions of others. So it's a combination of intrinsic and extrinsic things. Though it's a very common problem, it is also a very complex problem. Common in the sense that almost 4% of the population has it, 4% of young population children have it, and about 2% of adults have it. So now that you know what the cause, we really don't know the exact cause, but we know that it's a complex multi-causal thing. The next question that anybody with stuttering or anybody with a child who stutters would want to know is, what can we do about it? So how do you alter the environment? Genetics you cannot alter. What can you do with the environment? Maya ma'am.
Yes. See, the first and the most important thing is that we need to make sure that the child experiences as much fluency as he can. And that's where the parent's role becomes extremely important. The first thing we have to tell the parents is that they themselves have to be very relaxed listeners, so they do not interrupt, correct the child, complete the words for him, because that's a very frustrating experience for the child who's so busy trying to express his thoughts and then he's being interrupted. Next is that they also need to be relaxed speakers, the parents themselves, because we can't tell the child to speak slowly, but if we are good models, and definitely the child learns. Next is a very important thing is that we have to ensure that the child gains confidence in all his activities. And therefore, once he gets the recognition for whatever he's doing, that really helps to boost up his confidence, even for speech. Next is we request parents not to have, serious arguments in the presence of the child, particularly with the child rearing practices, like mother is saying yes for playing games on mobile and father says no, and then they have a heated discussion. This is just an example. So these kind of issues really need to be taken care of. There are many more, and every clinician who will interact with the parent will be able to decide what needs to be controlled in his environment. There can be a big list of it, which is already put up on the screen. And I would request Mrs. Snigdha Shevde. She is a parent who had a similar complaint. And Bharti madam, can you please
yes,
interview her?
Yes. Welcome, Snigdha.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for inviting me. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes. You are audible and you are visible. Okay. Welcome to the program.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. When did you notice that your child had problems in speech?
My child was around 3 years old, and I belong to a joint family, and I lost my grandmom. My child and my grandmom were very close to each other, and he took after stuttering. Specifically, what Maya ma'am is speech pathologist and language and speech pathologist at Sri Guruji Rungnalaya. So she diagnosed it as severe stuttering, and that is exactly very close to the death of my grandmom. That is the time I found it.
How old was your child at that time?
He was just 3 years old,
Okay. So when you said it was stuttering, what exactly did he do? Can you recall?
Yeah, if I recall, it was repetition.
Speech? Can you recall?
Yes, it was repetition of letters, end of the sentences, and trying to be extremely conscious about what he's saying, using long sentences. And then there's a word in Hindi where you say haklana. So that used to continue for more than 3-4 times when he used to try to just say, I want milk. It was as severe as that. So that is the thing I recall.
Okay. What did you do to alter this behavior, Snigdha?
So first thing, in fact, when I met Maya ma'am at her clinic at Sri Guruji Rugnalaya, she asked me how long was this pattern that was observed. So thankfully, I got in touch with her within a week of this observation. And then Maya ma'am actually...
You know the duration for which your child had this problem?
Yes. So how long did you observe your child to be in this severe stuttering phase? Was one of her first few questions. And it was barely a week when I met her. And she actually tried to explain it to me that what it means, why sometimes that happens, because children at 3 years of age have hard time even understanding, let alone process grief. So she helped me. She gave me a list of do's and don'ts, and understood the set of family, because a couple of things that she mentioned, that my child has a lot of adult exposure coming from a joint family and the child being the only one.
So what was the suggestion given?
The suggestions, yeah. So she suggested that you have to try to reduce the adult exposure. Yeah. So reduce the adult exposure, increase child exposure, speak slowly, make short sentences, do not interrupt your child, and pay attention when he's speaking. If he's stuttering, do not behave as if you stop being impatient, and then repeat what he has said in a fluent manner. When he is disfluent, wait till he finishes the sentence and repeat the same sentence slowly in fluent manner. So there were a lot of things she told us, and it helped.
How long did you take the child to therapy?
So given his age group, Maya ma'am had suggested that you have to go in for indirect therapy. So make more changes in yourself. Your child will mirror you. But we did have about a year together based on the rhythms ma'am had decided. So she wanted to interact with the child as well as the parents, sometimes even the family.
Okay. So how is your child now?
He's absolutely fine. My child is 6.5 years old right now. And even if there are, because as Maya ma'am had given us this information that you have to do not be upset because stuttering is cyclic in nature. You have to go, you have to watch out the red flags. So since I think 2 years, if I would rightly go back, since 2 years, at the most, he had a cyclic nature of mild to moderate disfluency. Otherwise, he's absolutely fine.
Okay. So what would you tell other parents whose child has begun to show stuttering-like symptoms?
The first thing I would share Maya ma'am's contact and ask them to go and meet her, because we were at such a bad phase after losing a grandparent. We ourselves were grieving. And I would say we have to come out and accept that we need professional intervention. If there are parents listening, I would really urge them to not wait and try to handle, like my friend who saw me, they said, why do you want to go and seek a therapist? Your child is just 3 years old. And me and my husband were from a place where that is exactly why we need to seek professional intervention. Because our child is 3 years old, before the child starts recognizing that there is a problem with him. So that is what I would urge all the parents to seek professional intervention as soon as possible.
Go to a speech language therapist at the earliest.
At the earliest, do not wait. Do not wait. Just go. Let the therapist tell you that it is not needed. Then you are good to go.
Okay. So, thank you, Snigdha Shevde. Thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Thank you so much.
You are a very good spokesperson for our profession too. Thank you. Thank you a lot.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Snigdha.
Thank you, ma'am. See you soon. Bye.
Bye. Bharti, I don't think we can hear you.
I think there's some internet issue.
I think I would like to add here what Snigdha said is that, you know, even if you feel that he may outgrow, because this is what the parents are very often told, just wait, the child will outgrow this problem very soon or in a few years' time. I personally feel that even if they contact a speech language pathologist, there is, it may be an error of commission at the most. That means they are getting help when they don't need. But the clinician will decide that, and there is no harm in getting directions on how to establish good speech habits as early as possible. That's what I would add.
Right. And I would also like to add that, especially in the Indian scenario, we also need to look at the rest of the family dynamic, the dynamic of the child with others in the family. For
Exactly.
instance, there is this child who I saw, he came from a joint family. And he had this cousin in the family who was the same age as him, very talkative. And what ended up happening is both started trying to talk together, and she ended up finishing it. So for him, it was like, if I don't speak fast, I don't get to speak at all. So what I had to then do is tell the parent that probably have days on which he starts first and days on which she starts first. So he has the security that I'm going to get my turn. I do not need to hurry to get my message across. So that is, I think, very important.
At this point, may I ask Dr. Geeta, who is a proponent of early intervention, as to why it is necessary to start therapy at the earliest?
Yeah. First of all, we should identify the problem at the earliest, because the onset of stuttering coincides with the normal non-fluency stage. So that is when the child exhibits, most of the children, when they are learning, they exhibit a lot of disfluencies. So we'll have to identify whether it is real stuttering or normal non-fluency. So generally, all of us have some amount of disfluencies in us. We call it as normal disfluencies. So a lot of pauses, hesitations, using audible and inaudible pauses, and interjections. So it is seen in most of the children as well as adults, as I mentioned. But stuttering is a typically different type of speech fluency disorder. So it is basically sound syllable repetition, saying, repeating the sounds or syllables in a word. It's basically within word disfluencies, like saying ball, repeating that more than 4 or 5 times, sometimes 10 times. So before saying, coming out with the whole word. And they may have prolongations of the sounds, that is within the word, they'll prolong the initial syllable or the middle syllable. They'll prolong the vowel part of the word for a longer period of time. And sometimes in adults or older children, it can be as long as half a minute, so which causes a lot of attention. And the third important feature is blocks or freezing. So when they get stuttering on a particular sound, like for example, when they say ball, they'll close their lips tightly and then come out, we release it with a lot of burst. So that is a typical stuttering feature. These three things, if they are there, and initially it will be on and off, sometimes it comes and goes. So it is not always there. And they'll have fluent periods within their utterances. So we'll have to identify these features and immediately bring them for consultation. So, and early management is also very, very important. So once we identify the problem, so we'll have to intervene. So because early intervention, it is supposed, research has told that it is, treatment is much easier in case of children when they're developing stuttering, and it is less time consuming. For older children and adults, they would live with stuttering for a long period. So they'll require more time to overcome their stuttering problem. And it is more long lasting. So that is adults with stuttering, yes, and Zoom, older children also, they'll show some relapses. Whereas will be children are, they show very fast recovery and take less time and effort to overcome their problem. And it all depends on the chronicity of the problem, how long the child has this problem. So if the child lives with the problem for 3 months or 6 months or 1 year, it takes much more time to correct that. So higher recovery rate, that is nearly 100% of children show complete recovery, or even more than 90% will have complete recovery, whereas older children and adults, it is seen that it is nearly 50% recovery rate. I mean, that means 50% will have relapses. So after complete recovery, they'll have relapses.
Ma'am, Mrs. Snigdha mentioned about, death in the family that led to the child's stuttering. This need not be the case in everything. What do you want to tell about that to our audience?
Yeah, I told about predisposing factor like physiological factor, like genetic factors, but there are precipitating factors. So this particular instance is emotional trauma, upsets in the family, serious anxiety, tension, and family problems especially. And this is the crucial period when the child starts going to school, which is very traumatizing to many children. So if there is a predisposing factor in the child, there is more chance with those precipitating factors for the child to exhibit stuttering problem. And the maintaining factors are basically the environmental factors, the child's own reactions to his problem, as well as the reactions of the others in the environment, basically the parents, teachers, and others, which can aggravate the problem.
Okay. In adults, Pallavi, you were mentioning about treatment which needs to be individualized. Can you elaborate on that? Now there's an adult with stuttering, he has severe stuttering, he has secondaries. So how would you go about treating it?
Absolutely. So the first thing is that is the
Pallavi.
difference. The first difference between therapy for children and therapy for adults is, for an adult, you give equal agency to the adult. You make him an equal partner in his therapy. So you discuss, you observe and you discuss and you talk about what are the goals that he's looking at. Are those goals realistic for him? How fast would he want to progress with those goals? For example, there was this one adult I was recently seeing, and one of our goals during therapy was simply to talk about your stuttering, because that was so difficult for him. Even opening up and talking about his stuttering was so difficult for him. So I said, let's make a list of people who you are most comfortable talking with and proceed further. So when we went, first we started with his parents, then his siblings, and then we came to maybe other people outside of the home environment. And there he was a little hesitant. So he came back the next week and he said, I don't think I can do that. So then we reanalyzed the goal. And I said, okay, within those people, there must be someone who you feel it's not that bad talking about stuttering. So he said, yeah, maybe. Then I said, okay, maybe you don't have to talk in detail. Maybe you can just go and ask that friend, I'm sure you noticed that I stutter. What do you think about it? That is all. You don't even need to disclose anything about your feelings. And he was okay with that. So this is what I mean, that your goals, your progress needs to be structured along with the adult with stuttering.
Okay. Aishwarya, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah.
About therapy?
Yeah, like Pallavi mentioned, we have to look at the individual as a whole and then decide on the treatment strategies that we would follow, because one treatment, one technique of treating the stuttering wouldn't fit all. So you have to look at the person, the problem, the specificities, and the some of them. In fact, when they finish their studies and when they start searching for job, they come to us saying that now I have to attend interviews and I have this problem, but this problem was always there, but the person was not bothered about the problem. Or some a girl getting married, then she comes to us with the problem saying that I want it to be treated. So that is why we have to look at the individual as a whole and then decide on the strategies which we will adopt. So there are a lot of techniques which the speech pathologist would tell them, for example, certain breathing modification technique. There are certain relaxation kind of technique. There is a lot of counseling involved, looking at the problem that the person is facing, etc. So all this is going to play an important role, and that is why I repeatedly feel that it has to be an individualized program that the speech pathologist has to, custom make for a adult who's coming with stuttering to us.
So what you are saying is basically that for some, counseling would take up a lot more importance. For some others, relaxation would take more importance. For some others,
Yes.
systematically upgrading the challenge would take precedence. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but as a whole, we have to look at the person and decide which one to give more importance to, and then, progress in our therapy sessions, because it is not going to be easy with a person with stuttering. You cannot treat a person with stuttering because he's been living with the problem for so many years, for an adult who has stuttering. So we have to gradually grade and, grade up and go and decide, looking at the seriousness, or, the severity of the problem and how he is responding to therapy.
So can a similar approach be followed even with the children? Meaning, are there special techniques that you follow with children? Because they're younger, they have had it for less number of years. Geeta ma'am, are there techniques that we can use with children, therapy techniques directly?
Yeah, sure. Children, it is difficult to make them understand the complexities of communication. So we'll have to use analogies to make them understand the act of speaking. So we have various analogies basically to counsel the parents how it affects the child's ego and esteem personality when he stutters. It is sudden, it is shocking to the child. So parents should be very comfortable and accept the child's problem, because any subtle reactions also can cause him more reactions in him. And the second set of analogies can be to explain the child's speech mechanism as such. So how tensing at the lips or at the throat level, holding the breath tightly, all these things can lead to disfluencies or breakdown in fluency. So we'll have to teach them using various analogy like blown up balloon analogy or hose pipe analogy, where we'll have to show how the water gushes out or comes in spurts if it is if the pressure is applied in between. So for smooth flow, there should be
so explain
the
to them
tract.
what therapy
Yeah,
involves
we'll have
in a
to
language
use,
that they can understand.
yeah, we'll have to explain with those models and things like that. And for direct therapy, I advise direct therapy as early as possible, because along with the indirect approaches in modifying the environment or modifying the parental acceptance and school management and other things, we'll have to directly tackle the child's fluency. There again, we can use analogies, because it is difficult to just explain to them, speak slowly and things like that. You can use tortoise and the rabbit, this thing, racehorse. So generally they have a very fast rate of speech. So we will have to make them use slow rate of speech, proper rhythm and loudness and other things, coordinated speech. So you can use puppets, hand puppets and other things to make the child. I mean, you can, the clinician can give the model, or the parent also can be taught to use the puppets to give proper model, how to speak one word or syllable at a time, and gradually that the rate can be within the normal range. Initially it can be much slower, and then it can be made into a normal rate.
Okay.
And similarly,
so which was the youngest child that you saw, Dr. Geeta?
Yeah, I have seen, generally they say we shouldn't identify the child's problem early, because of it causes the child to react to the problem and things like that. So according to some theories, they say early identification is not important, and most of the time we misdiagnose the so-called normal non-fluency as stuttering. So, but I have seen a child 1 year, 10 months old, who showed typical stuttering like dysfluencies, and including secondary behaviors. So, which is supposed to develop as a part of the primary feature, but very close to onset, you can see very typical secondary features also, like eye blinking, nose flaring, body movements, tension, facial grimaces, and jerky movements of the hand and leg at the moment of stuttering. It's not always there, but at the moment of stuttering, they exhibit these things. So these secondary behaviors are very easy to correct, showing through the mirror, giving the feedback, because most of the time we don't realize what we are doing, how we are saying things. But giving feedback will help them to understand what is happening when they are speaking, what secondary features are there, and you can correct them easily. And primary features, we'll have to use slow rate, soft contacts, relaxation, breathing exercises, and various other aspects.
Okay. Aishwarya, can you please
Bharti, can I
elaborate?
add something here, please?
Yes,
The main reason why I wanted to add this is that very often mothers are little worried about bringing the child to a speech pathologist because he might get worried as to why I am coming here. So a very good way to do that is tell the parents to tell the child that you're going to a speech school, like how you go for drawing classes, you're going for a speech class. So to improve your drawing, similarly, you can improve your speech. So you're just going there to enhance your speech. That's all. If we say that, I think, the child also will not get anxious.
Okay. That brings me to the next question. Aishwarya, can you differentiate between what Vaivy Geeta ma'am was talking about, primaries and secondaries?
Yeah.
The common person in our audience may not know what a primary is and what a secondary is. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So the stuttering that you see in children or adults, you can see two types of behaviors in them. One is the speech behavior. When you are speaking, the blocks that you see, the repetitions. For example, apple. That's a repetition there. Or maybe you say apple. So that's a prolongation there. So these are all overt speech behaviors that you see in a individual with stuttering. So those are called as the primary features, and the secondary features are the behaviors, the bodily behaviors, the body language, or the features that a person have when he is stuttering, and sometimes it could be to distract the listener. For example, always doing this hiding of the mouth, or twitching of the eyebrows, or constantly moving the legs, the arms, or the legs, or even excessive sweating are all considered as secondary features. So these features are shown along with the primary features, that is the speech features that I just explained. So when you give treatment for stuttering, we have to give importance to both primary and secondary features. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Pallavi, I'm sure there are persons with stuttering who would come to the speech pathologist and say, I don't mind the primary so much. They wouldn't use the word primary, but they would say, I don't like my hands going like this when I'm talking, or my mouth closing up so much, tightening so much. I want to get rid of that. People might come and ask you, what would your advice be to them?
So the first thing that I explain to them is secondaries are exactly that. They are a result of the primaries. So there might have been some moment when you had a very bad block, and just at the time you were getting out of it, you tapped on the table. So somewhere in your subconscious, it got imprinted that tapping on the table gets me out of this block, and then it became a behavior. So one assurance that I give them is, because it's something that is arising out of the primary, when we are working on the primaries, the secondaries will reduce at the same time. The second thing is that usually there are approaches as well to deal with this. So if the secondaries are something that's bothering them, or they just don't come down even after dealing with the primary blocks, there are techniques like relaxing out of a block, where you absolutely freeze where the block comes, do not fight it, release it, and then let out. So these techniques can be taught to them. And finally, a lot of our viewers might be surprised, but a lot of people who stutter are not even aware of their secondaries. So many times they don't know that they're jerking their head or they're moving their hands as well. And when they come for therapy, when they observe their own speech, that is when they realize it. And then they know how to deal with it.
Okay. Mrs. Mayasangi, could you elaborate on how you as a speech therapist would deal with each of these primary symptoms?
Yes.
How would you help a person fight a hard contact?
See, the first thing I would explain is that our goal is to have easy stuttering. Because what happens is, in the initial days when they have started stuttering, most of them, I would say, have very easy repetitions. So their muscles of their oral cavity are moving quite easily, but they are only repeating. It's gradually that the prolongations come in and the blocks, where the airflow gets blocked and the individual is not able to speak without ease. So, I'm sorry, with ease. So, I think the first thing I explain to them is about acceptance, that yes, you have a problem. So the more you avoid, the more you try to hide, it's going to increase. So first thing is we help them accept, talk openly. We have a few sessions on that, also few counseling sessions on that. Of course, counseling goes on in every session. And then what we need to explain to them is how speech breathing is different from our regular breathing for life. And after explaining all those details, we help them in the breath management techniques. We teach those techniques. Then we also have what we call as the airflow techniques. So a number of techniques are used depending on what the individual is experiencing. Like earlier, Aishwarya and Pallavi said that one particular, we cannot have a universal program for each individual. It has to be very, very individualized. And so managing all these along with also giving them some group therapy, the number of techniques that we use, like I just listed a few, but also we have to give them group therapy, because once they start meeting others in the group with a similar problem, they really open up and they try to understand what is going on. And very often we bring in a person who has already improved into the group, and he talks to them, and that's where they get motivated to work hard. And the most important thing is
something like self-help group.
Pardon?
Self-help groups for people with stuttering.
Yes. So we have that, like,
monitored by a speech pathologist.
Yes.
Hello. So, self-help groups, I said.
Yes. Similar to self-help groups. And here the clinician is always there to support them. So it's not only by the persons with stuttering, but also with the clinician helping them how to go about it. And every time there is a particular agenda, how each one is going to talk, on what they're going to talk. So all those things are there. And of course, the most important thing is that they should not go doctor shopping. Like, they go to a clinician for 2 months, then they shift to another clinician because they have not had patience to see the improvement. And let me tell you, the first improvement that a given individual will start observing in himself is minimum 3 to 4 months. And it is only after that he will start. So very often they get impatient. And of course, they should not be, just going by what is given on Google, because so often they just read on Google and then try to help themselves. Yes, there's no harm in doing that, but they need individualized treatment, and therefore it's important that they take help.
Okay.
May I add something to what ma'am said about group therapy?
Yes.
I think 2 sentences that keep coming into the heads of people who stutter, 2 thoughts that they keep experiencing often is why me and why try. So why me is basically that I am the only one who has this. Why do I have this? Why does nobody else have this speech issue? So that gets dealt with very well in group therapy because they see so many others with the same issue. And the second thought is why try? Because they have so many bad experiences with people, with listeners, that they just want to stop trying. So that why try also gets dealt with very well in a group because they see others trying and they get motivated themselves. So that is why a group is extremely important.
Okay.
If I can add, Bharati, another few points.
Yes, Dr. Geeta, please.
Yeah. This is very important because generally we have overt and covert features in stuttering. So overt features are what primary, overt and covert features. Overt features are what we talked about in terms of primary and secondary features, which are obvious, whereas covert features are inherent, the attitudes, the negative attitudes, especially the beliefs that whether they can overcome their stuttering or not, and their anxiety, tension in meeting people and various situations, because it is very situation specific problem. So we'll have to counsel the children or adults, and even group counseling of parents, because they won't have met any other people with stuttering. So having group interactions will help them to realize their own problem with respect to the others. Some may have more severe problem, some may have less severe problem, and how they are overcoming their problem, what techniques are helping them. So they'll get more confidence in themselves. You'll have to periodically counsel them every session, in fact, so that they'll know how to use the techniques. And I generally advise diary writing. So they'll have to maintain a diary of day-to-day practice, how they're doing, and the clinicians can give specific exercises to practice outside, so that they will know how they are practicing these techniques, how they are doing outside. Because in the clinician, in the session, it may be, they may be fluent. After some time, they're used to the clinician, and they know that clinician is going to help them. So the problem is more severe with respect to strangers. So they'll have to face more strangers, practice the techniques, and that will help them to, and writing them down will help them to understand the importance of practice and how it is helping them or not helping, and interact with the clinician regarding their experiences.
Okay.
Another important point that I would like to suggest is once you give therapy for a stutterer, and the stutterer is out of his problem, if he feels that he is able to manage his speech without any disfluencies, and you're trying, as an SLP, you're discharging the patient, and you're asking them to go off, you are fine and all that, but the need of frequent follow-ups, because relapse is something which we have not mentioned here. Relapse in stuttering is a very important thing, because many of them, after getting discharged, they come back to us with a more severe problem. So as speech pathologists, we also tell them to have regular follow-ups. To, even if they don't have problem, they have to come and meet us at regular intervals, so that we can assess if there is any chance of relapse and to treat that as well.
Okay.
Here I would like to add 1 minute that relapse can be induced while the individual is towards the end of his therapy sessions. We can tell him to give up all his practice, all his techniques for a week or so, and we see how much is the stuttering appearing again, to what degree of severity. And that also will help him to understand that even if he gets a relapse, he will know how to control it.
Okay. Okay. So what you're suggesting is the following things: that a person with stuttering maintains a diary to find out what kind of situations aggravate it and other things, and be prepared for relapses. And one way of being prepared for relapse is, when he is just about to go out of therapy, to stop using all the techniques that you have taught him and see how it comes, and then again use the techniques, so that he knows the importance of therapy. Am I right? Okay.
Yes.
And then I think one of the questions that adults and children's parents would ask you is about medicine. What would you like to tell our audience about this? They will all want to know whether there is a medicine for stuttering.
Should I answer this? Who's
Yes,
going to answer?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. See, we have to make it very clear that there is no disease here, and therefore there are no medicines. What we want them to gain is a good control over their speech mechanism, with all the help that the clinician is giving you, all the advice, all the techniques, all the counseling, all that is going to help him get good control over his speech mechanism, and he should have that faith in the therapy. That's very important.
So don't jump from one therapist to another. Persevere, stay on with the therapist, try all this. At this point of time, there is no medicine for stuttering, because it's not a disease. Okay. Then we come to the important aspect of what is the role of the conversation partner or society or the listener in helping a person with stuttering. We can start with Dr. Pallavi.
Sure. One thing that I feel is that, of course, we tell listeners to be patient, not try to complete their sentences for them, not try to guess what they're saying, because that's often what people do in trying to help. They're trying to help the person who stutters, but actually it's detrimental. It actually makes them really angry that, don't complete my sentences, listen to what I'm saying. So that is one. The other thing is that most people tend to approach a person who stutters with a bias. For example, if I see a person who stutters speaking, I listen to his speech and I go back to my own experiences of when I was getting stuck while speaking, which probably might be when I was in a viva, I was nervous, I was not sure of what I was saying. Okay, so I sort of tend to project it onto this person. I sort of decide in the beginning only that, oh, this person is probably very nervous, very anxious. He doesn't really know what he wants to say. So, this is one thing listeners should definitely avoid. They should avoid approaching persons who stutter with a bias.
Okay, so do not complete sentences for them. Do not be biased against them. Don't project your feelings about a disfluent speech onto them. Aishwarya, what would you like to say about listeners' reactions to people with stuttering their speech?
Yeah, a lot of times listener reaction plays a very important role in the uh, severity of the person who is stuttering. So, a simple example is having this very strange facial expression of looking at a person and, having a very judgmental face, I would say, because that itself can trigger this patient, this individual who has stuttering to increase his disfluency. So, as a listener, I wouldn't want to look at a person with any judgment. Say, for example, I will not say that, I should not say that this person has less intelligence or less IQ or is not knowledgeable just because he's stuttering. So, facial expressions being judgmental about the person who stutters. And also, another mistake that I often see is completing the sentence for the stutterer. That also should be avoided by a listener. You should not be completing the sentence because you don't know what the individual with stuttering is wanting to talk, right? So that is another point that I would like to add on.
Okay, so Aishwarya, what you're trying to say is we cannot be judgmental about any of the attributes of persons with stuttering. They're as intelligent, as introverted, as anxious, or as any other person. So
Yes.
nothing personality-wise, nothing characterizes a person with stuttering. Is that it?
Correct.
Okay, Aishwarya, thank you. Dr. Geeta, I would like to ask you about what role the media can play in sensitizing the public to people with stuttering.
Yeah, that's a very important point. So, because generally it is the negative way in which it is depicted in the public. So, we see many dramas, picture, movies where we have somebody stuttering, shown as stuttering, just to make people laugh. So, that's a very poor trend. So, poor way in which to depict the character, because they don't realize how it hurts the individuals with stuttering, having this problem, how it embarrasses them, how it ridicules or puts them in a bad light. So we'll have to encourage the public, maybe through public education pamphlets and articles in the newspapers or magazines, highlighting the need for public acceptance and not giving a lot of support to them rather than putting them in bad light. It happens in schools also, where many children develop stuttering during preschool period, early school period. So teachers also don't know how to handle such children in the classroom. So they all laugh at the child. Yeah.
Okay. Mrs. Maya Sanghi has particular tips for teachers, I think, on how to handle.
Yes. Yeah. So we have to generally avoid putting them in a bad light and making them accept this is one of the problems the individual has. He may have many other talents and other important things, like they may be good at singing or they may be good in sports and other activities. So we'll have to highlight those positive aspects rather than highlighting stuttering.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Geeta. Mrs. Maya Sanghi, what advice would you give teachers?
See, if teachers can cooperate with the clinician and the parent, then it is almost like winning half the battle, I feel. so often the child does not want to speak out in the class. Even if he knows the answer to the question, he will try to keep quiet because he's worried that he might, not speak fluently. So the teacher can talk to the child individually, not when the other children are there, about what kind of participation he would like. A simple example would be to call him to the board to solve a particular maths problem or any such thing, which will help him participate and gradually gain self-esteem. Also, the teacher can talk to the other class members about the child when he's not there and explain to them how they all need to be supportive in this particular with this particular child. Sometimes a single child who's a bully can be disastrous for the child. So the teacher can try to counsel him and tell him that you have to be a big brother and help him out. So there are different ways in which the teacher can really help these children.
I just saw a comment right now saying that the
Buddy
media has a
system,
very
employ a buddy system where one child is responsible for.
Sorry, can I add a little to what Geeta ma'am said about the media?
Yeah, Pallavi,
I just
please
saw
go
a
ahead.
comment right now. I just saw a comment right now about the fact that the media has a very responsible role to play. What I've seen so far is that the thing with the media is very tricky. So on the one hand, we are seeing a change in the form of movies like The King's Speech, or maybe our young audience might identify with Shahid Kapoor and Kamine. So we are seeing people playing protagonist roles who stutter. But on the other hand, I have this interesting anecdote to share where I was about a year ago, I was asked to write an article in a paper about the people who stutter. And they asked me to share stories of people who have overcome their stuttering or who are dealing with their stuttering. And one thing, there was a special condition that I should share their names because they wanted personal stories. So they wanted me to share their names and pictures. So what I told them was that I would love to share these stories because it's very important, but none of them would really want to be comfortable disclosing their identity. And this person on the other side just could not understand why. So that is the truth. There are a lot of people who don't understand what people who stutter go through in terms of the stigma, in terms of not being understood. And I think when that changes in India and the world over, then we would have made a positive change for people who stutter.
But I think things are changing for the better in that there was a stand-up comedian who stutters. There was an ad about
there was a TED talk also by a person who stutters. So things are definitely changing in the positive direction. So let's hope for the best.
Yes, and the YouTube video that we put up right at the beginning of this presentation was all about people with stuttering who came out, isn't it?
Yes.
So yes, so these are the guidelines for teachers and for the society also. What I think we would like to tell the audience is that be accepting, don't finish their sentences for them. Listen to what they have to say rather than how they are saying. So here is a testimony of persons with stuttering who undertook treatment. Let us listen to that.
Hi everyone. I would want to share my stuttering experience with you all. I was a stutterer since the age of 5. Hi everyone. I would want to share my stutter. We face lot of criticism from our peers, constant ragging, terrible stage fear, loss of confidence. We become extremely introvert. But all of us need to understand that running away from the problem is not the solution. True solution lies in facing the problem and resolving it as soon as possible. I started with speech therapy when I was 16 years old with Mr. R.K. Oza. The speech therapy included simple exercises like breathing, reading, group discussions, talking in public. I went through these exercises for a period of year, and today, as you all can see, I am a fluent speaker. I pursued my career as a lawyer, and today I am successful practicing lawyer. So I would just like to say that consistency is the key, and speech therapy is the most effective solution for this problem. And all of us shouldn't lose confidence, as it is truly said that every problem has a solution, and so do stuttering has. I wish you all the best.
I think that was a very positive statement from a person who has undergone treatment and who has found a lot of benefit. And here is one more testimony from a client who received treatment.
लास्ट 4 to 5 months पासून थेरपी घेतो. मी या व्हिडिओमध्ये माझे थेरपीचे एक्सपिरियन्स शेअर करतोय. थेरपी आधी जेव्हा मी कोणाशी बोलायचो तेव्हा माझ्याकडे कॉन्फिडन्स ऑब्विसली नव्हताच. अँड तेव्हा बोलताना फक्त एकच क्वेश्चन आणवत असत की मी ते बोलू की नको बोलू, आणि बोललो आणि अडकलो. आज बोलताना कॉन्फिडन्स असतो आणि बोलताना मॅमने ज्या टेक्निक्स शिकवल्या आहेत त्या टेक्निक्स मी खूप चांगल्या प्रकारे वापरतो. आणि ऑब्विसली मला जी मॅमची टेक्निक शिकवण्याची जी पद्धत होती ती सुद्धा खूप आपल्यासाठी चांगली आहे. आणि आपण कोणती गोष्ट कुठे वापरली पाहिजे अशा टेक्निक्स तर भरपूर असतात. माझं नाव गौरव जाधव. मी पौर्णिमा.
Ma'am, perhaps you can translate what Mr. Jadhav said to our audience who don't know Marathi.
His main focus was on lack of confidence, how he would always hesitate to speak because he said if I spoke, I didn't want to stutter, and therefore I used to try and avoid speaking. But after using the techniques, I have gained a lot of confidence and have started monitoring my speech, and I have been told that I should gradually become my own therapist, and therefore I am really trying to do that. So that is the gist of it. And he says that by practicing regularly, you can get a lot of control.
Okay. So I think in conclusion, for children with stuttering, we can say that identify it early. We have given a list of how to differentiate normal non-fluency from stuttering. So identify early and seek help of a speech language pathologist. And as parents, model good speech and modify the environment. Be prepared for relapses and follow speech therapy activities diligently. And for adults, we can say, accept your stuttering, be ready for the long haul, persevere with all the activities, and aim for easy stuttering. With that, I think we come to the end of today's session. The questions we can take now. There are a few questions that we will be taking now.
Ma'am, at the base, there are Q&A section. You can first address those, and then there are a few in the chat.
Yeah. At what age should we start therapy? Sheetal Shah asks. Ma'am, at what age should we start therapy is a question.
As I mentioned earlier, it should be as early as possible. So as soon as, like, the onset of the problem can be very early in children, between 3 to 5 years generally. And as soon as they identify the problem, instead of trying out various things and bringing the child after the child develops a more chronic problem, they should seek help at the earliest.
Okay. And there is another interesting question about cluttering also, which we wanted to cover in this panel discussion, as two of the panelists are or were formerly members of the Cluttering Association internationally. Could you please elaborate signs and symptoms observed in child who stutters or clutters, which would warrant a psychological referral? Maya ma'am and Aishwarya, who would like to take this question?
I can. Aishwarya, yes. You can go and then I can add.
Yes. Aishwarya, you would like, please unmute yourself, Aishwarya.
Yeah. With respect to the psychological referral, we have to really look at the person again with respect to his levels of anxiety, levels of, maybe depression, and there are certain counseling tips that we would give as speech pathologists, but we definitely have not learned, or we are not professionals to give psychological help. So as and when you see that this person is getting a lot of demotivated because of the way he speaks, the fear with which he approaches people, and the fear with which he approached a particular situation, etc. If it is not in our, if we cannot manage it, I think then we can refer it to a psychologist or a psychiatrist for which they can get counseling or medical treatment.
I would add one anecdote here because I was managing a young adolescent girl who had severe problems. And while interviewing and as and how the sessions went on, I realized that she had severe hatred for her father. And that was because the father used to beat up the mother all the time. So she wanted to leave the house. She wanted to tell the mother, we are not going to stay with him. Let's come out of the house. You know, and the mother was a typical traditional lady who said, we have to follow what your father says. So there was such a lot of disagreement that I felt it was very difficult for me to handle this. So I immediately referred her to a psychiatrist and a psychologist to manage this issue between the mother and the daughter.
With respect to cluttering, I would want to add that in persons who clutter, the awareness is something which varies along a continuum. So earlier there were views about people who clutter that they're not aware at all. But the most recent views of people who clutter tell us that they are aware to the extent of being upset about their cluttering. So that is something which we do need to address in therapy for cluttering. And like Ma'am and Aishwarya said, to the extent that it is linked to the speech issue, we can handle it with counseling, and a lot of our approaches also deal with that aspect of the problem. But the minute we realize that it is something which is more generalized, like a generalized anxiety disorder or something which else related to their family dynamics which is bothering them and unrelated to the stuttering, we absolutely need to refer to a psychologist.
Yeah, as professionals, we should be able to take the call as to when we can handle it ourselves and when we need to refer to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Then would you like to elaborate for some of the students who might be listening to this about how to differentiate cluttering from stuttering? Pallavi?
So the essential difference is stutterers cannot start and clutterers cannot stop. That is the simplest way to put it. Stutterers know exactly what they want to say, but they just can't get it out. Clutterers many times are kind of lost about where they started and where they moved ahead. So what often helps to differentially diagnose both is ask them to just narrate about a topic, and especially a very difficult topic. So don't give topics like, or tell me what you did through the day, because that just involves enlisting. You need to give them a topic which makes them think, which makes them organize. So language organization is something that is definitely going to help us differentially diagnose.
To add to that, if I may add, these children or adults with cluttering, although it is very rare phenomena in speech language pathology clinics, so cluttering is a phenomena which is mostly not looked into so much, but generally they'll have a lot of associated problems like language issues, phonological problems, and reading, writing problems and other things. So as soon as we see them, we will have to administer certain tests like Daly's checklist and others, and do a thorough evaluation to identify different problems the child or adult exhibits and treat them as a holistic thing, not focusing on only cluttering symptoms or stuttering symptoms. The symptoms are basically in cluttering, it is excessive repetitions, unlike stuttering, and easy repetitions. It's not, there are no hard articulatory fixations or blocks or prolongations, but more of repetitive nature. So we'll have to tackle the problem symptomatically, whatever they exhibit.
And I think what we talked about in this discussion about stuttering like disfluencies and non-stuttering like disfluencies or normal non-fluencies. So in a person who clutters, you'll see a lot of those disfluencies which are not like stuttering. So saying something and I start saying something and then I change my sentence and start again. Okay, so revisions or stopping and saying, I mean, you know, all of these things are seen more in people who clutter.
Okay. There's a question here. Do you recommend working on language formulation exercises as well in people with stuttering? Probably like pragmatic aspects of language.
Yeah, if I may answer, Yeah, language is a crucial aspect. It is found that the 30 to 40% of children with stuttering and more so in terms of cluttering, they have associated language issues. And so also bilingual children, bilingual or multilingual, which is more predominant nowadays. So those language issues are very important because it is the language processing that is important. So if it is a developmental period and the language is being learned, the vocabulary and other things, the child has to be given appropriate opportunities for using the language, giving proper models, and not to pressurize the child to use too many languages. Initially, you can restrict to 1 or 2 languages and then add on. Okay, so that is very important for the children.
Okay. Here is another question. How to motivate an adult or teenage person with stuttering who has given up on therapy because it hasn't worked and he's not bothered by the friend's reaction? Self-help groups, the group therapy perhaps?
Yes.
Yeah, group therapy.
Group therapy, yes. But one thing I feel like when I said that you have to give the agency to the adult who stutters, I also give them the agency about deciding whether they want to do therapy or not. Because there are a lot of people who stutter who go on with their stuttering and talk on the mic also, and they are not bothered with it. So, we tell them about these people, and then we say, if you want to work on your speech, then you have to do this practice and these exercises and this absolutely exactly like I say. But that is your call.
We can only give options, and they are the ones who choose which one, do they really want therapy, and if they want therapy, how do we proceed, and things like that. So we are only giving options.
So there is another question on, yes, Dr. Geeta.
Yeah, there are some instruments also for very severe stutterers who show relapses more frequently and who are demotivated, like wearable devices like DAF, FAF device, behind the ear model, which can be used, they can be taught how to use that so that they can use it in crucial situations and they can develop their own fluency with that.
Okay, so if they're not ready for therapy, maybe some kind of instrumental help can be given to them. You were mentioning about a senior citizen who took therapy from you, Dr. Geeta.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that age is not a barrier, but earlier the better, before it becomes more habituated. But I had a case, an 85-year-old engineer, retired engineer, who showed drastic improvement after couple of weeks of speech therapy. So that should be motivating for all the individuals with chronic stuttering, adults especially, who are demotivated using various techniques and failing. And it's not that one therapy fits everyone like most of us talked about. So we'll have to show them that speech therapy really works for them to get control. It's not curing the problem, to get good control over their speech.
Yeah, what we said about easy stuttering again. What we mentioned as easy stuttering, ma'am.
Easy stuttering. No, I generally don't advise substituting one abnormality with another one, but they shouldn't worry too much about being very perfect. You will have to show them different people how they are disfluent, like so-called normal non-fluency and other things, and help them to say that it is not perfect 100% fluency that is expected. Nobody's 100% fluent in all the situations, so they should accept and gradually work towards 90%, 95%.
Acceptance.
Yeah.
Acceptance is important. There is another question on, I think we are running out of time. One last question we have time for.
Yes, ma'am, last question.
Last question is on integration of yoga techniques with speech language therapy techniques for treatment of stuttering.
Yeah, if I may answer that, we had one dissertation done on this yoga and pranayama, which really helps them because generally they'll have more anxiety, tension and all that. So relaxation exercises combined with yoga pranayama definitely helps them. So I also advise individuals to try that, to see that they maintain relaxed posture always.
Okay, I think we are really running out of time here. I would like to thank all the panelists for answering all the questions and highlighting the importance of early identification and treatment by a speech language pathologist. Thank you so much. I thank Isha for giving me this opportunity to moderate this session. Meenakshi, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I am sure it was such an excellent learning experience. I'm sure parents must have. There were a lot of parents actually on the YouTube. We had a lot of good questions also, and Dr. Krishna was moderating that. The questions we couldn't take all of those questions up probably because of the time, but I'm sure they must have learned a lot today. So thank you very much to all the distinguished panelists, moderator ma'am. I would like to call upon Naika sir to say a word regarding the panel, and then we'll proceed to the next session. Naika sir. So you can switch on your mic, yes, sir.
Hello everyone. It is indeed a good beginning of the speech and hearing awareness program, and I'm glad to be part of this. No doubt the participants have benefited from today's live and lively discussion on stuttering. The information, tips, and suggestions given by the panelists will surely help the persons with stuttering and their family. I thank all the esteemed panelists and the moderator for giving a beautiful start to this fortnight. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we would like to move on to our next session of the day, which is regarding the regarding the assessment tools for SLPs. So I would like to call upon our General Secretary, Mr. Indranil Chatterjee, to chair this session and proceed with that. Indranil sir.
Yeah. Good evening all, and the very beautiful journey we have started in this particular Isha fortnight, and thank you for all of us who have who are instrumental in organizing these particular things. Especially I mentioned Meenakshi madam, President sir, and Jawaharlal sir. Today I am going to introduce you one very beautiful personality and a speaker. She is Niti Sharma. She is from the psychological portion, the clinical psychologist in Pearson Group, and she will be now presenting on essential assessment for every speech and language specialist. So she is basically from the background of the psychology, but she is instrumental to develop so many things, especially with reference to cognition and the neuropsychological things. And she is now currently working as a training and assessment specialist at Pearson and has MPhil in clinical psychology. So basically she is from the clinical psychology background. So I introduce her, and I just welcome Miss Niti Sharma. Please, you start your presentations. And madam.
Yes. Niti ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much for the introduction. I'll just share my slide quickly. All right. So I will not be available on video. I'm very sorry about that. But thank you again for inviting me and giving me the opportunity here to talk about the different assessments for every speech and language specialist which they can utilize in their practice. And I have been hearing all the discussion that just happened in the previous session, and everything that was said was really meaningful, and some of the things such as the early intervention, self-help groups, and accepting the person the way they are by society and the person themselves, these are very important points that has been highlighted by the previous panelist. And along with it, being a psychologist, I would also add to it, which has been highlighted in the previous session, that individual therapy is also very important, especially when stuttering or cluttering or any kind of speech difficulty, that if it leads to a psychological problem such as depression or low self-esteem, or maybe some psychological problem is leading to such kind of a problem such as stuttering or any other speech and language issues. So the previous session was really beautiful. Congratulations to all the panels. let me just continue with my session now. So here we are going to look at a few of the assessments that are kind of very important. And first of all, I would like to introduce ourselves, who we are. So Pearson is a company which has been working in assessment development and production and publication for a very long time. And it is a multinational company with different researchers in different languages all over the world. So at the beginning, I would like to say that we have 80 years of experience of publishing tests at a global level, and we are responsible for the publication of many globally used tests which have now become the international standards in their field itself. So that highlights kind of that in speech and language as well, we come with a lot of assessments which can be useful for the professionals when they are utilizing their practice. And like I said, our assessments and solutions span across the areas of clinical psychology and occupational therapy, speech and language, early childhood, pre-K-16 education, that is in the school, and special needs. So we come with various assessments that can be taken up. And what we do, or when I say the approach for today, is every day, basically. Whenever we are looking at any client, we first always look at a screening model. This is from the perspective of a clinician, whether a clinical psychologist or a speech language specialist or a psychiatrist or any other specialist in this field. The screening is the first important thing that we start with. So once we do the screening, through screening, basically, we identify the areas that are of problem. Then we go in depth, finding the exact nature of the problem, the cause of the problem, and that is called the assessment or the diagnosis part, where we go in depth. So it will include a lot of interview maybe with the family, along with assessments or batteries of assessments for a proper evaluation. And then we come to the intervention part. So obviously, once we find that this is the problem, this is the root cause, or this is what is leading to, then we need to intervene. So how do we intervene in our area of work? We definitely intervene through counseling, whether it is in the Department of Speech Language or whether it's the Department of Psychology. Counseling tips or counseling is an important aspect that has been utilized and that will continue to be a part even in the future, along with special techniques that are separate for each department. So speech and language department has their specific techniques through which they will deal with or intervene with the different points or different problems that has been identified through the screening and assessments. And the another thing that we need to keep in mind is after the intervention is done and the client is doing fine and the client has ended therapy, we need to monitor their progress. And why is that? Because of relapse prevention. And relapse prevention is something that has been highlighted in the previous session as well. So it is important that monitoring outcome is very important to keep in mind the point of relapse prevention, so that a person does not go back into the same problem again. So in between, after a gap of 6 months or 1 year, or there will be some booster sessions depending on the nature of the problem and the person's availability, that will be decided by the therapist. So this is a general approach for all sort of therapy or whenever the client comes to any practitioner. And in Pearson, you will see that the assessments are also you will find assessment at different level. So you will be finding assessments which are helpful for at the screening level, which are assessments for the assessment particular diagnosis level, for the intervention purpose, and for monitoring outcome. I will be discussing some of the assessments in the upcoming slides. Okay, so before going in depth, there is a quick poll. Can you please?
Yes, Niti, the poll is ready. So at how many seconds it will be on?
It will be half a minute. It's a very easy question.
Okay. So I'm just enabling the poll. The poll will be available for 30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. So this poll is mainly for professionals who are part of this audience now. So please answer.
Thank you so much.
Okay, sir. May I know the result?
Yeah, there are 93% says yes and 7% says no.
Okay, so that means most of the audience here who are professional are using assessments. So I'm glad to know that. That will be easy for me to continue with the next slides. All right. So recently from Pearson, we, in association with Isha, we had a survey done, and what we found as these are the major 6 products which are pretty useful that was found by all the speech and language therapists. And these are also some of the tests that many speech and language therapists has kind of suggested that they would want an Indian adaptation, and Pearson is looking at that. So we are working on making Indian adaptation in a standardization and different norms in the Indian setting and also the language. So let's hope we will get some of them very soon. So I will just go through them very briefly. So the first test, the CELF5, most of you might be knowing about it, is a test which provides clinician with a streamlined, flexible battery to assess semantics, morphology, syntax, and pragmatics for students aged 5 to 21. And as you see, it is a recent, not extremely recent, but not too back. It's a 2013 production publication, and it requires a qualification level B. That means a person who has at least a master's degree in their required field can use the test in their practice. And it's a very easy to administer test. That means it can be done only within 30 to 45 minutes. And it is done by providing verbal response to picture stimuli. So it's one of the most used assessment as we found in our survey. The another most used test is the Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test. Currently, it is the 5th edition, and we see that it can be used from the age of 2.5 years to 90 plus years. So you see the age range is pretty high. And again, it takes only 10 to 15 minutes to administer. It was a very, very recent publication, that is in 2018. Although it has a norm reference in the standard American English, but many Indian speech and language therapists have been utilizing this test in the Indian scenario, and they have found it to be pretty useful. And you can use the paper pencil or the digital format. So one good thing about this test is available in the digital platform as well. The third one that is found to be useful again is the EVT, that's Expressive Vocabulary Test. Currently, it's in the 3rd edition and very recently published in 2018. Again, it's a norm reference test in the standard American English. Usually, the PVT5 and EVT3 is used simultaneously together as a combination. Need not be, but that is how it is used most of the time. This is also available on the digital platform, and it takes hardly 10 to 15 minutes to administer. And the age range is also similar to the PVT5. And the PLS, that is Preschool Language Scale, currently in the 5th edition, is also found to be very useful. It offers a comprehensive developmental language assessment with items that range from pre-verbal, interaction-based skills to emerging language to early literacy. The age range is less here, 4 to 7 years, 11 months, but keeping in mind what it measures is that it's measuring emerging language and early literacy, so I think the age range is pretty good for that. And this also can be completed within 1 hour. And Here also, it's very easy and very interactive for the child. They find it very interesting because they have to point or they have to give verbal response to pictures and objects. So they find it very interesting. Another most popular test is the Cognitive Linguistic Quick Test Plus. So the Quick Test Plus is published recently in 2017, and before this we had not the plus version, the CLQT, which was published in 2001. As you see, this also has a pretty wide range from 8 years to 89 years 11 months, and this quickly assesses strengths and weaknesses in 5 cognitive domains, and also adds an optimal administration path for people with aphasia. So this can be utilized in the diagnosing part as well. When I mentioned the 4 areas where we look at a client, the screening assessment. So this, I think, can be used very well in the assessment part. And it is done on a paper pencil level. And another very, very important tool that can be used and has been widely used is the Western Aphasia Battery, which is a revised version currently published in 2006. This, as you see, the age range is pretty high, from 8 to 89 years. It is a battery which will help the therapist assess linguistic skills most frequently affected by aphasia, like non-linguistic, along with the non-linguistic skills, and provide different diagnosis information. And it is also adaptive to various administration settings, from hospital to clinic. It provides a baseline level for performance to measure change over time. So it helps not only in diagnosing, but also in monitoring progress. And since it's a huge battery, it will take some time, say like half an hour to 1 hour for everything to be completed. It's also available on the digital platform, that is our Q Global digital platform. I will be discussing it in the later part, as in the Q Global. So as I mentioned, those 6 were found to be the most used and most used assessments from the survey that we had recently conducted along in association with Isha. There are other assessments as well, which I would like to highlight. So I'm just going through them quickly as we don't have much time. So auditory skill assessment is used for early identification of young children who might be at risk for auditory skill deficits, along with early literacy skill difficulties. And it's a screener which provides accurate developmentally based result to help determine which children may need follow-up, intervention, or further evaluation. And you can see the qualification level is B. That means a person who has at least a master's degree in the field, the relevant field, can use this. And it doesn't take much time. It hardly takes 5 to 15 minutes to complete. And it has a paper pencil plus a CD-ROM version. That means you can install the software in your computer and do it. And it was published in 2010. And as you see, the age range is till 7 years, almost 6 years, 11 months. The next one, we are looking at Braken Basic Concept Scale, currently in the 3rd division, and it measures evaluates a child's acquisition of basic concept non-verbally. So how much the child has gained basic concepts. The tested area is strongly related to cognitive and language development, as well as early childhood academic achievement. So if you get a case where you also have to look at the achievement, the classroom level of achievement and all, you can also use this particular test as well. So it is done through, the scoring options are done through like an assistant software, or you can use manual, and there are teacher and parent reports here. So you can have 2 or 3 different opinion also about the child using the same test, which will give you more relevant information. And although it's published in 2006, but it is still utilized, and it's a pretty much relevant test even in the current level or the current present years. And the age range is 3 to almost 7 years, that is 6 years to 11 years. Another important test for almost all departments, whether it is speech and language or psychology or psychiatry or even pediatrics, is the Bailey, currently in the 4th edition, which is just published like last year, 2019 in September. And it's the most comprehensive assessment tool for determining development delays in children. So it not only assesses the psychological component, it also has a huge section on the language and development section. So it can be used by multidisciplinary approach, from a multidisciplinary approach. So my different professionals, and it's really, I personally feel that Bailey is quite helpful, because if you look at the age range, it starts from 16 days to the 42 months. So most tests usually starts from 3 years or 5 years or 2 years. Here we can assess a child as early as 16 days of their life. So that way it is pretty interesting. Another interesting part is that Bailey is also available on our Q Global, that is a digital platform. Then comes children's communicative checklist. It measures, basically looks at the parent or caregiver rating scale, which is based on extensive research by Dr. Dorothy Bishop, and it helps rate aspects of communication screens for general language and identifies pragmatic language impairment. So it basically helps to understand the parent point of view. So along with your clinical interview, you can give these checklists, so you have a more objective findings of the interview, and also or what the parent's perspective or the caregiver's perspective is. Coming to the next test, we look at comprehensive test for phonological processing. That is the second edition right now, published recently in 2013. And it measures phonological awareness, phonological memory, and naming. The assessment features all new normative data and a new phonological awareness subtest, that is the phoneme isolation. So as a therapist in speech, you will find this test pretty useful if you are looking at these particular subtests or the sub areas in the client. Then you can definitely look into a test like this. We do not have a digital version of this. It is only available in the manual scoring option. Diagnostic evaluation of articulation and phonology is also a test which is widely used in the Western countries, and it evaluates articulation and phonological process using a diagnostic screen. And it looks into phonology, it looks into oral motor screen, and as you see, the age is 3 to 8 years and 11 months. So it helps in also finding, basically, when if you refer a client with motor deficiency or any kind of developmental delay, again, you can definitely use this test to look at the language part if there is any motor deficiency in there. The GFTA, currently in the third edition, published in 2015, it provides accurate scores for making diagnostic and placement decisions. So if at all you have to look at different levels where the child will fall, or you have to make some decisions about whether the child can be promoted or not or something, then probably you can use this test. It will help you there. And it takes hardly 5 to 15 minutes for sounds in word section, and it can be varied. The time limit can be varied for sounds in words, intelligibility, and the stimulability section. So there are different sections. As a therapist, you will be able to find scores also on these all different ways, and help the parents and this teacher, help the child, and you can intervene on, make intervention based on the scores that are found on these categories. Then oral passage understanding scale, published recently in 2017. You can use it to measure listening, that is auditory comprehension, and you can assess comprehension of spoken language in a natural context in this particular test. And it is administered individually. The examiner reads a passage and related questions aloud. So there is no writing here, there's no reading or writing, it's only just listening and responding. And the age range is also wide, 5 to 21, and you can do it in 10 to 20 minutes. The OWLS, So you might know this test, most of you keep currently in the second edition, and it is available only in the paper pencil format right now. And it measures listening comprehension, oral expression, reading comprehension, and written expression. And it gives a complete, accurate, and useful picture of language skills, the overall language skill. And as you see the age range, it is still 21 years, 11 months, and starts from age 3. So that also gives a wide range. And it can be done by any person who has relevant master's degree to be able to conduct and identify and administer and report a test. They can administer it. So this is another very interesting, this is not an assessment as such, it is more of a reviewing, progress monitoring. The best thing here, the qualification level is A, so it can be used by any person. The person doesn't need to be a specialist in certain department, but they can use these to look at the monitor, or as in the progress, how much the child or the person, the adult has progressed. It can be used in school, it can be used in clinic, it can be used everywhere. And you see the age range is pre-K, that is from nursery or even lower to through adult. There is no particular higher age range. It can be used for everybody. And this is a web-based solution. It delivers a tool and resources necessary to achieve the best possible outcome for students, staff, and schools. Yeah. So I'm quickly going to going through the scan 3 and scan 3 children and scan 3 adult. So both of these tests are same in terms of what they are measuring. Only the difference is their age range. So in scan 3 for children, the age range is still 12 years, 11 months from starting at 5. And here it is from 13 to 50 years, 11 months. And both of them measure auditory processing disorder in children, adults, and adolescents, and it's a battery of tests to detect auditory processing disorder. The next is test of word reading efficiency. It is currently in the second edition. As you see, it measures an individual's ability to pronounce printed words and phonemically regular non-word accurately and fluently. Usually, we have seen that it is used for early detection, diagnosis, of disabilities and research purposes. Okay, so I'm concluding with the assessments here, and before going to the next section, there is a quick poll. Can you administer the poll?
Yes.
Again, it will be half an hour, sorry, half a second, half a minute, I'm so sorry, because it's not a very tough question.
It started.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so can I have the response? All right, so as I see, 82% of the practitioners have moved to digital practice, and 18% have not, and they are continuing that the way it was. That seems fine, and I'm going to quickly take you through telepractice, which is also called like digital practice is basically telepractice. And we have seen in the West, they are the ones, the speech and language therapists are the one who have actually started telepractice, and and they are taking it into a different level. In India also, a lot of people, like I just saw, 82% people are utilizing telepractice. So if you look at telepractice, it is nothing but utilizing telecommunication technology to deliver speech and language pathology and audiology professional services at a distance by linking clinicians to client or clinician to clinician for assessment, intervention, or consultation. So there are different terms that can also be used, like teleaudiology, telespeech, and speech teletherapy. However, I would like to mention that there are certain guidelines that needs to be followed depending on the association that you are member of, these guidelines have to be followed. Like for example, in the West, in the American scenario, they have this American Speech Language Hearing Association called ASHA. They have provided a lot of guidelines on how to go ahead, what are the type of assessments that can be done, what are the type of therapy that can be provided, and there are different webinars and different resources available. So if you are interested in getting to know them, you can definitely log into our website and you can find the different guidelines. In India, if you have your particular guidelines that you're already following, then that's amazing and that needs to be continued. If not, if there is nothing, then probably the speech and language, the whole department can take certain guidelines and make it up, because I think telepractice is going to stay from now on, not only in speech but also in psychology. We have all moved to digital assessments, digital counseling and therapy. So what helps in digital therapy or even actually in assessments is Q Global. So Q Global is a Pearson's online or web-based system for test administration, scoring, and reporting. It is launched in India and the subcontinent, so you will find it everywhere. And it houses the industry's gold standard assessment tools and is accessible from any computer connected to internet. And it helps you quickly and efficiently organize examining information. It helps you generate scores and produce accurate, comprehensive reports. It's very convenient, it's secure, it's time saving and affordable. And most importantly, there are 3 ways of using it. So you can have, first is the manual entry. So you can administer the test manually and enter the scores on Q Global, and the Q Global will generate the report and the score will do the scoring and generate the report. Or you can use it in your clinic. You can have your client sitting in front of you and you can administer the test directly using the Q Global on your computer, and the report will be again given to you directly. And another way of using Q Global is a remote on-screen administration, which we also call as ROSA. So that is basically, if you do not have the client in front of you, you can send the link to the client or whoever it is, or as a child or an adult, a parent or a teacher, you can send and they can administer the test sitting in their house or in their clinic or wherever, and you will get the result, the report. So these are the 3 ways Q Global helps us practitioners continue our practice in the current situation. And it also helps people, the public, especially parents who might be little apprehensive, thinking that due to lockdown or due to moving digitalization, how can they continue their child's therapy or the medical treatment. Q Global helps us there. And because most of the intervention will be based on assessments, so first we do assessments, then we make our intervention goals. So this is the way you can continue your child's or your friends or your family members treatment through the lockdown period or whatever the pandemic or so. So if you want to know more about our products and you want to contact us, so this is the email address, this is the Pearson website where you can contact, and we have a phone number given here. Please note it down, you can address us. And for Isha members, there will be certain special offer, so do contact us. We will mention the offer when you contact us. So with this, I conclude my presentation. If there are any questions and if you have time to take it up, please let me know.
Yeah, thank you, Niti. I just wanted to keep you informed and all the participants also, since you raised about the telepractice one.
Yes.
Isha, Indian Speech and Hearing Association, has come up with guidelines on telepractice, and it is available on the website. And members can look into it, and even the others practitioners who are looking at it also can look at it. This is I would like to contribute to that. And thank you for your excellent presentation.
Thank you, sir. And that is really amazing that Isha has come up with guidelines, because in most of the things we see that in India, somehow guidelines are always missing, and most practitioners are using our own clinical, thing that we are doing it in our own. So it really helps to have some guidelines intact.
Yes. Thank you.
Indranil sir.
So, any questions from participants and audience? Any questions? So you can just write to the chat box, or otherwise we can conclude. And I have a questions to Nithi ma'am. That is the how we can trans adapt or adapt this in the Indian context, Indian language, and also the cultural validations, and any plan with the Isha. And second is new tool construction, rather adaptation. Any plan to do the new tool construction for the Indian scenario?
Yes, sir. I would like to answer that with a very positive note, saying that yes, we are open to new tool construction, but for that we have to get the relevant information, what is required and what kind of tool and everything. So we have our R&D team who looks at construction of tools and also standardization of tools and adaptation along with that. So if you can contact us, we can take it forward and figure out what is required and how or what is the best way to go ahead. And in terms of adaptation, we are open to that as well. As I mentioned, we had a survey in association with Isha, and most practitioners mentioned that they would like to be part of that adaptation process, and they would like to be work as a researcher here and help us also. So that would be lovely to help have more people coming to us and we can work on it together. So we are open to adaptation and creating new tools. So all we need is just a go ahead and together association with Isha members.
So thank you, ma'am. Because of the shortage of time, so just I want to conclude this that it is a very interesting things, and we definitely in future we definitely will collaborate with Pearsons for all those things. And I now ask Madam Meenakshi, Madam, are
Yes,
you
sir.
there? And
Thank
just
you.
to conclude and
Yes, sir.
end of this session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Neeti.
Thank you, ma'am.
Exciting. Very nice. I hope we would have had, more participants, and many of our professionals would have, benefited from this presentation. But we do have a recorded version of this, which would be available on our YouTube channel for anybody who missed this today's session. I would like to call upon Naika sir to give a concluding remark on this session, and then Naika sir. Yes, sir. We can see you, sir. You can speak, sir.
Hello. Good evening, all of you. We had very interesting session, although it is 9 o'clock past 9. I think still participants are listening excitedly. And thank you all. And I'm sure Isha will take it forward, the suggestions, and we will surely collaborate. We have already initiated collaboration. A discussion is on, and I invite suggestions from members, suggestion by members, how and what tests can be adopted on priority wise. Thank you, Pearson. Thank you all
Thank you,
for
sir.
making a good beginning. Let's hope we will make it a big success in the coming days. I request all the participants to spread the news about this campaign, and let's hope we will make it a good program for the years to remember. Thank you all. Thank you once
Thank you, sir.
again. Good night.
Thank you, sir. So we would like to. Hello. Yeah. So we would like to thank everybody, and would like to remind all of you that we have another session tomorrow. So please log in tomorrow and encourage all the people who can benefit from these sessions. Encourage them to participate. All students, all your friends, anybody is welcome to join us. And I would just put up tomorrow's program here. Okay. So this is tomorrow. We have two sessions again. one on our speech and language disorders. It's early intervention of speech language disorders, and second one is on early intervention of hearing loss. So sorry, this is the one. I think that they're both same. So yeah, so another one we have is on the on hearing loss early intervention. So please log in and stay tuned. I would like to thank all our sponsors once again for helping us for this during this event management. Thank you. Have a good day. And
Meenakshi.
Yes, sir.
Anil, you can end the live streaming.
Can we also consider